इंडिया स्पीक्स डेली को सब्सक्राइब करें, उसके बेल आइकन को ज़रूर दबाएं यदि आपको इसकी पत्रकारिता पसंद हो। धन्यवाद।
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to India Speaks Daily. On the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has offered to mediate, to act as a mediator between India and Pakistan to supposedly resolve the Kashmir dispute. And the UN Secretary General made this remark while he was in Pakistan recently on a 4-day visit. Now, India, of course, has categorically rejected the United Nations Secretary's offer of mediation, saying that the focus instead should be on getting vacated the territories that are illegally and forcibly occupied by Pakistan. And not just that, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson also emphasized that the United Nations should also pay heed to the fact that Pakistan is sponsoring terrorism from its soil, and it should also act to put some sort of a curb, some sort of a stop on terrorist activities emanating from the Pakistani soil. So now Pakistan, of course, along with other countries, has been trying to politicize the Kashmir issue for long. And it is not the first time that Pakistan has done so. Previously also, on a couple of occasions, Pakistan tried to drag India to the United Nations over alleged human rights violations in Jammu and Kashmir post the abrogation of Article 370. And now it's been quite a while since the abrogation of Article 370. Jammu and Kashmir has become a union territory now, and things are gradually getting back to the normal, but Pakistan is still up to its dirty games. And assisting Pakistan is Turkey now. Turkey is again back in its extremist form, in its extremist avatar, with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan comparing the so-called struggle of Kashmiri people with that of the fight by the Turkish against foreign domination during World War I. And so basically Turkey is supporting the Pakistan's version of things and saying that India should discuss Kashmir with Pakistan, and that India doesn't really have a right over the over the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir is essentially what Turkey is saying. Now India has obviously strongly reacted to Erdogan's comments and pointed out how Turkey is completely sidestepping the issue of cross-border terrorism, how it's again completely sidestepping the issue of Pakistan sponsoring terrorism while sort of trying to malign India's image on an international platform. Now, India, although need not really worry about these negative reactions coming from a minuscule of the international community, because most of the international community, most of the countries across the world are with India on the Kashmir issue. The European Union is supporting India. The European Union delegation recently visited Kashmir, and the delegation has appreciated Indian government's efforts to restore normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir. The EU has observed that India has indeed taken steps to restore normalcy in the state. Now, apart from the European Union, of course, the Islamic world, the Islamic countries have also supported India when it comes to the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. And these Islamic countries, with the exception of Turkey and Malaysia, have refused to align themselves with Pakistan. On the contrary, sort of respecting India's ownership over the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, when it comes to the US, the United States, the US, of course, under the leadership of Donald Trump, has played the flip-flop game with regard to the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. When the US president is with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, then he says something different. And then when he's with the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, he says and does something different exactly. And he's also made this offer of mediation a couple of times. But I think India should not take this seriously, and there's really nothing for India to worry right now, even on the US front, because with the upcoming presidential elections, With the US presidential elections not very far away, we don't think that Donald Trump would really do anything drastic. He would take any drastic step that has the potential of alienating the Indian American voter base, the Indian American diaspora, that is. Of course, the only thing for India to worry about is, and that is something that India has to watch out for, is if the UN passes a resolution against Kashmir, but then that is against India on the Kashmir issue, but then that seems highly unlikely because the whole of international community, as I said, is with India on the Kashmir issue. So what India really needs to continue doing is what it is already doing, disseminate more and more information about the positive developments that are taking place, about the developmental paradigm that the government is pursuing in the newly formed Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So the Indian government needs to communicate, needs to interact more and more with the international community. And as things get more and more further back to normal, Indian government needs to invite other delegations as well from across the world, not just from the EU, but from a broad spectrum of countries across the world, and sort of undertake this big campaign to sensitize the international community vis-a-vis the reality of Jammu and Kashmir and how things are getting back to normal there. So this will certainly work to India's advantage, and then Pakistan will have no ground left to attack India on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, in the meantime, ignoring all the naysayers, the government is already making consistent efforts to develop the infrastructure in the state, to undertake developmental activities. The tourism sector, for example, the government is already making massive investment in the tourism sector. In fact, the Jammu and Kashmir government, in coordination with the central government, will spend rupees 2,000 crore, a big amount, to upgrade the tourism infrastructure of the state. And as tourism has always been the strength of this picturesque, this beautiful place, and therefore the government is now exploring tourism as a tool to boost infrastructure, to boost investment, as well as to create more and more job opportunities within Jammu and Kashmir. Now, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, while presenting the budget, had also allocated rupees 30,757 crore for the development of the Union Territory Jammu and Kashmir for the financial year 2020-21. So, as you can see, the government is already has already started laying down the roadmap for undertaking developmental work in Jammu and Kashmir. But what is surprising here, and what is rather disconcerting here, incongruous here, is how the left liberal media is conveniently sidestepping all this news, how the left liberal media is not really portraying the other side of things, the positive side of the government work that is being done in Jammu and Kashmir since it's becoming a union territory, or since it's become a union territory. On the contrary, the left liberal media is constantly trying to rake up the divisive narrative in Kashmir again and again, desperately looking for things, desperately looking for controversies, for issues that can be controversial. And as you remember, for a long time, the mainstream media consistently harped on the shutdown of internet services in the valley, on the temporary shutdown rather, trying to project some conspiracy by the government to curb freedom of expression of people, to curb their speech, their free movement, etc., whatnot. As if the whole of India has access to the internet 24/7, as if all Indians have access to the internet, and a temporary shutdown of internet services amounts to a natural calamity, a national disaster of sorts. So this is how the mainstream media had manipulated the whole situation and built this divisive propaganda kind of campaign around that hinged around the shutdown of internet services in the valley. The social media was full of viral posts regarding this, with exaggerations about how people are dying there because they cannot get to the hospital on time, etc., just because the internet services were shut down. So now, of course, with the internet services having been mostly resumed across the Union Territory, the media, the left liberal media, really has no issue left to attack the government's handling of the Kashmir situation now. So now what they're doing is they're nitpicking for negative reactions from international community vis-a-vis the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. And the government is exactly doing the right thing. The government should completely ignore the reaction of the left liberal media, and the government is doing that. It is behaving in a fairly restrained way, ignoring the naysayers and quietly doing its work of restoring development and normalcy to Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you.